Okay, so another week, another Orville episode. I'm sorry that this one's a little bit late. I've had a lot of stuff going on. But as always, I'm Al, this is the Geek in Review, and I'm going to be talking about the Orville Season 3, Episode 5, so you know the drill if you haven't seen it. What an episode this week. A great opener. I forgot Scott Grimes can sing. He's done it a few times in the show, but man, that guy's really just a performer, not just an actor. And my first thought was, it's a Gordon episode and he's dead. And we've got the same thing sort of with the Orville this week that we had with Strange New Worlds, which is time travel. And I do think both shows are overdoing this. This is the third or fourth time that Orville's done this, and Star Trek seems to do it every 6 episodes, no matter what season it is at this point. And I know we're going to get it in Strange New World Season 2 a little bit more, but man, I'm sick of it. Just Star Trek and the Orville. Please stop doing time travel. But other than that, it's a great episode, so let's get into it. So yeah, we're getting into a sort of theme this season of revisiting past episodes, and this one, depending on your point of view, doesn't disappoint. This is like the 4th or the 5th time they've done it, and I think they really need to stop doing it. If the Orville is building its own universe, I understand why they do this sort of thing, but we don't really need it every week. But anyway, Charlie still has Isaac issues, and it's another episode, as I said, about another episode. Remember the iPhone holodeck episode with Gordon a few seasons back? So yeah, this is where they're revisiting. And they're not just revisiting one old episode in this one, they're doing a few, because there's a time travel device, which I think was from Season 1, Episode 1, and it's now been made weaponisable, and with a war on, they don't want this falling into the wrong hands. Which, yeah, makes sense, and the Kaelon are back and want time travel, because of course they can do that. They just do a Borg and go back and wipe out the Union. And I wonder, at the start of this, is that the way this is going to go? But no, not yet. They could do it in the future, because again, they love doing time travel, but not yet. But as always, the CGI and the space battles and the core exploding look absolutely brilliant. This show levels up every episode in terms from the VFX. I think from episode 4, when that was the Krull one, yeah, I just love the way this show looks. I mean, Strange New Worlds is getting there. For me, the peak is the sort of Expanse at the moment, but the Orville, certainly in terms of the world building and the excitement and the danger, when you're watching these space battles, me personally, I absolutely feel it. But yeah, the sort of time travel device explodes and Gordon's now stuck on Earth in roughly about our time. And they find out that he lived an entire life, he had his own business, he was a pilot obviously, and he looked quite happy and he lived in his 80s or 90s. Now, while this doesn't seem that bad other than the fact that he's stuck in the past, his life did seem to be pretty happy, but this breaks their version of, the sort of temporal prime directive from Star Trek. So they've got to travel back to our time, which is good because one criticism of the Orville is all the jokes that they make, well maybe not this season, but certainly in the first 2, are 21st century or 20th century jokes, so why are people in the future using our sense of humour? And I get that, it's maybe lazy writing and it takes you out of the show, but I don't mind it. And yeah, this is a little bit of Star Trek, The Voyage Home as well. Not my favourite Star Trek movie, I'm not going to lie. But they don't really overdo or play into the time travel tropes too much in this episode. If anything, they sort of turn it on its head and make it a bit darker, but I'll get to that later on. So there's a lot going on in this episode. They've got the future tech they need to worry about, they've got the crewmen they need to save, and then they need to work out how to get back to the future. Isaac and Charlie need to work together to find the fuel to make the jump possible. And when we meet Gordon, it's all good and it's all happy. He's living his best life. I don't know if he's running his own business at this point, but he certainly seems to be in a sort of management or high up position. And yeah, he just seems to be fitting in perfectly well, which again, going back to the holodeck episode with the iPhone, he loved the 21st century, and this to a certain degree is exactly what he wants, but careful what you wish for. And once you get the introduction of what his life's like with his wife, he's now hooked up with a lady whose iPhone that he found in the future. That's a little bit time traveller's wife manipulating the past to get your own sort of happy ending, let's put it that way. I'm not sure I 100% agree with that. They don't really delve into the ethics evidence of what Gordon has done beyond the fact that he's fractured time. But yeah, he sort of manipulated this woman because he's known a lot about her, he's had her phone and... But yeah, I think that's a little bit creepy. Let me know what you think in the comments below. So yeah, he's met the girl from the iPhone episode, and Ed isn't happy about this at all because he's created a family in a life that shouldn't exist. And that, as you can imagine, is a bit of an issue. Gordon does point out that, hey, the fact that you guys could be able to time travel back to get me means that the union exists, so whatever I've done and whatever my son's going to do doesn't change the timeline that much. But Ed and Kelly have this discussion at one point in the episode where they're talking about, well, it's not what this kid is going to do, it's the people that he's going to influence as well. So it's not so much, are you creating the next Hitler? It's more a sort of butterfly effect. They don't know how this is going to play out. And Isaac says that time is always in flux, so once you make these changes, until you sort of get to your present or back to where you were, you're not really sure what the end result is going to be. So despite your best intentions, it could end up all going wrong. And that's what happened with Kelly at the end of season 2. And as I said, they do have some fun with the time travel stuff. You know, Gordon's car play is the Orville, and they don't lean into the comedy as much as you would have thought. As I said, this episode does feel like a more season 1, season 2 episode of the Orville, but it does get more serious and it does have heavy tones later on, especially in the second half, with Ed wanting to take Gordon back and Gordon wanting to defend his family, and Charlie explaining why she can't get over what Isaac has done. This episode does take a big tonal shift, like I say, about halfway through, and yeah, I like it. The Orville isn't afraid to hit heavy. It done it last week, and whoa, what an episode, man, that was. This one's been another great one, but the theme this week is more one of theoretical ethics rather than reflecting what's going on in society. And once they find out that they've got the fuel to get home, Ed stops playing Mr. Nice Guy with Gordon and decides to just try and take him back. And when that fails, Ed, you know, he's all business in this one. This is the first time, or not the first time, but certainly the most Union captain he's ever been, because he knows he's got the fuel to jump back in time. So he just says to Gordon, look, we can just jump back to like a week after you arrived here and we'll save you. Your family won't exist and that's it. Now, man, that is cold. There's been a lot of debate about this online, about how Ed handled it, and I understand why they done it for dramatic purposes in the writing, but yes, sort of telling someone that I'm going to go back and erase your family before it happens. Ed just could have said to Gordon, okay, cool, have a happy life, walk out the door, and then just go back and erase it, and Gordon wouldn't know. Once they do get Gordon back, or their version of Gordon I should say, they tell him what happened, and I was kind of shocked about that as well. And I was shocked that the original Gordon agreed that he was being selfish by doing what he'd done. But again, he'd been stranded on Earth by about a decade at that point, so he was lonely. And yeah, the ethics and the themes in this one are really good, and it's a totally different swing, as I said, away from last week, but it's still asking some deep questions. But on a lighter note, if you look at it this way, Ed Mercer achieved in an afternoon what Skynet couldn't do in 5 or 6 films. And what I really liked about this episode as well is how they used sort of relativistic faster than light travel to get back home to the future. Scientists, do you hear that? They're not doing it in Star Trek. In Star Trek, do you hear that? Why aren't you doing it? You're supposed to be a show that's about science set in the future. But all in all, another great episode for this season. And I wasn't exactly sure where they were going. Let's say I thought Scott Grimes and Gordon were going to get written out or killed off, because I think he's doing Seth MacFarlane's new Ted TV show, but I'm glad he's sticking around for the moment. All the stuff with Charlie and Isaac, I didn't focus too heavily on that. I don't think that was the core of the episode. They got some great scenes and they got most of the sort of time travel humour stuff, while the more serious stuff was left to Ed and Kelly. That's absolutely fine. I do think they're using Charlie too much, and I just found out this week that she's dating Seth MacFarlane, so hey, make of that what you will. But one thing is, this show is called Orville New Horizons, and this again is the 4th episode out of 5 where they're going back to old storylines, and they need to stop this because it's getting a little bit annoying, and it totally goes against what the name of your bloody show is. It's not that it's bad, it's just very boring every week, and I don't get why they keep doing it. when the show has the budget and the skills to push itself forward and do whatever it wants. Again, I think part of this is trying to establish its own world by referencing old stories, but come on guys, don't be Star Wars where you keep getting caught in the past. And when this show first started, it was getting relentlessly compared to Star Trek, and quite rightly so, but now we're just comparing this show to old episodes of, well, this show, and I don't really know what I think about that. It's not a great feeling, but we're going to have to wait and see how this season ends. I hope they don't do it again this week, but chances are they probably are going to. The Kaylon and the Alien Bug Admiral storylines are still out there and they need to get built on. What I'd love to see, and what they might do, is something like a Kaylon rebellion, or an element in the Kaylon that want to rebel. But yeah, we got 2 time travel episodes this week with Star Trek and Orville, both very different, and I liked elements of both, and I wasn't a huge fan of elements either. You can check out my Star Trek video on the channel as well. If you've made it this far, please leave a like on the video and subscribe. It's just one click for you, but it means the absolute world to the channel. My name's Al, as always, thanks for watching.